members of the ACR Council, fellow ACR members, colleagues, friends, and guests. I am honored to speak with you today as ACR President, and I am fortunate to be joined by many members of my immediate and extended family, including my brother Paul and sister Nancy. My siblings and I were fortunate to have parents who lived well into their 90s, and after our dad died, we realized what a tremendous job he had done in caring for our mother with advancing Alzheimer's disease. After another year had passed, she needed full-time care, so we sought placement in an assisted living facility. It took us 3 tries to find a facility with sufficient excellence in Alzheimer's care, and I marveled at how closely our experiences matched the ratings in Medicare's Nursing Home Compare website. The 5-star facilities were clearly superior, but what was the secret sauce that made them truly excellent? More broadly, what are the key ingredients that enable some medical centers to rise to the top of the honor roll as published by U.S. News and World Report? Are there similar gradations of excellence in professional organizations? And are there lessons to be learned in our work as volunteers that can translate to our work in healthcare and vice versa? I have been intrigued by these concepts for a number of years and have chosen to focus my time with you today on organizational excellence. I'll speak about features of excellent professional societies and healthcare institutions, as well as some things that can undermine organizations that strive for excellence. In reflecting on the time that I have been privileged to serve the American College of Radiology, I am struck by the degree to which the college promotes and inspires excellence in our work as radiologists, while at the same time advancing excellence within this most critical professional organization for our specialty. In short, the college helps us build excellence in our practices, and we as members and leaders help build excellence in the college. The synergistic and symbiotic relationship pays dividends for member radiologists, for college staff, and most importantly, for the patients we serve. The ACR promotes excellence in our work as radiologists through a host of products and services that advance the practice and science of our specialty. Under the Commission for Quality and Safety led by Dr. Jackie Bello, the practice parameters and technical standards inform best practices for medical physics, radiation oncology, and diagnostic radiology, and the appropriateness criteria provide guidance to referring practitioners on the most appropriate imaging examinations for their patients. Within the Data Science Institute, led by Drs. Keith Dreyer and Bib Allen, use cases for artificial intelligence guide future algorithm developers to address applications that will increase the precision and efficiency of medical diagnosis and offer the greatest value to our patients. While helping our practices achieve excellence through these and other tools, the ACR also seeks organizational excellence internally. In my years on the Board of Chancellors, I have been very impressed by the degree to which the college reflects on its myriad activities and attempts to refine and improve them for the benefit of its members. In recent years, the college embraced a robust strategic planning process that enabled us to reaffirm our core values of leadership, integrity, quality, and innovation, and articulate our core purpose to serve patients and society by empowering members to advance the practice, science, and professions of radiological care. In 2014, goals and objectives were developed for healthcare payment policies and practice models, membership and member engagement, radiology and patient-centered care, innovation and research, external relationships, and financial sustainability. Recognizing that strategic plans are never static, the college revised its plan in 2017 and introduced goals and objectives focused on data science. Here, the college demonstrated organizational excellence by thoughtfully reevaluating its plan to keep pace with the rapidly exploding field of machine learning and artificial intelligence. Inherent in this strategic evolution is a clear recognition of the need for appropriate financial stewardship. I have been pleased to participate in several initiatives to develop and implement financial controls to ensure that college resources are focused on the most appropriate activities for its membership. Shortly after the strategic plan was developed in 2014, the college embraced a program assessment methodology that enabled it to review and evaluate the college's multitude of programs and services and test them against the priorities of our strategic plan. This initial effort required over a week to accomplish, but it paved the way for a robust methodology by which we evaluate legacy programs on a regular basis and fully consider the cost and benefit of proposed programs before committing college resources towards them. The program assessment process evaluates each program according to 3 variables: the attractiveness of the program to college members and its alignment with our strategic plan, the college's ability and capacity to execute the program, and the strength of other potential providers of similar programs and services. I have been impressed with the commitment of college leadership to ensure that college resources are used most judiciously using this method. While the college embraced strategic planning and program assessment primarily for the benefit of its members, these activities may also inspire organizational excellence in our own backyards. Seeing how well these methods have worked at the college, I recently had the pleasure of translating both activities to various roles that I play in my day job at MGH. We have developed strategic plans for the Department of Radiology and Interdisciplinary Vascular Center and the hospital's diversity initiatives. Each strategic plan was developed using similar principles and techniques as executed by the ACR. These plans were followed with a similar program assessment methodology to help build a set of prioritized tactics in support of each of these strategic plans. In these regards, I believe the college has greatly informed my ability to pursue organizational excellence for the department, the Vascular Center, and other programmatic initiatives that I am tasked to lead. I encourage other members to draw upon the experiences of the college to promote organizational excellence within their own span of control. Institutions such as the ACR must put first the health interests of the patients we serve. However, potential conflicts of interest are inevitable among professionals who serve multiple masters. Full disclosure and management of such conflicts is critical for organizations such as the ACR to maintain the public's trust. The ACR has had a strong conflict of interest policy, but I've enjoyed seeing our board chair, Dr. Geraldine McGinty, lead an effort to develop a more robust conflict of interest policy for the college while serving as vice chair of the board and now implementing it broadly during her tenure as chair. In some small way, I believe that some of the best practices embraced by the college are informed by conflict of interest policies developed at some of our larger institutions that face such challenges on a daily basis, particularly as they relate to researchers with multiple funding sources and business relationships. In these regards, organizational excellence in our departments has helped inspire and inform organizational excellence within the college, highlighting again the symbiotic relationship between life in a professional organization and life in daily practice. I encourage members to consider the best practices put forth by Dr. McGinty and her task force as informative to conflict of interest policies that may be embraced locally in their practices and communities. Excellent organizations require effective leaders at all levels. However, in medicine, physicians are often appointed or promoted to leadership positions with no formal training for the positions to which they aspire. Most radiologists completed a science, technology, engineering, or mathematics curriculum before entering medical school. Led by Dr. Frank Lexa, the ACR's Radiology Leadership Institute has proven to be a very effective vehicle for cultivating leadership skills at all levels in our profession. This, plus the educational offerings of the Academy of Radiology Leadership and Management, provide robust curricula for radiologists seeking to hone their leadership abilities. Organizational excellence begins with leaders who are able to connect with their constituents, whether they be partners in their practice or fellow faculty members in their academic departments. Effective leadership requires emotional intelligence, the ability to identify, monitor, and discriminate among different human emotions. These individuals use emotional information to guide their thinking and behavior, leveraging empathy, respect, and selflessness in their professional interactions. Such leaders are able to gauge the personalities of their constituents and adjust their approach accordingly. It's also important for leaders to understand their own personality and how they relate to others. While there are many personality assessment tools that can be leveraged, I find it easy to apply the DISC personality tool, in which individual traits are characterized as either dominant, inspiring, supportive, or cautious. These traits are governed by two relatively orthogonal axes. One's external focus or priority may range from being task-oriented to people-oriented, and one's natural tendency or drive may range from being active and outgoing to passive and reserved. When I first entered radiology leadership over 20 years ago, my personality assessment placed me way out into the cautious and careful category. I was the Mr. Spock of radiology. My peers in this category tend to be very task-oriented and rather passive or reserved. At that time, I was astounded to learn that the very effective then president of Yale New Haven Hospital, Ms. Marna Borgstrom, had a personality assessment that placed her way out in the Oprah Winfrey zone of inspiring and interactive. These individuals tend to be very people-oriented with an active and outgoing natural tendency. I had presumed that hospital CEOs should be dominant driving personalities, more like General George Patton. But I've since noticed many healthcare executives in the Oprah Winfrey zone more than in the General Patton zone. Over the years, I've sought to migrate more to the Oprah Winfrey style of leadership than the Mr. Spock approach. However, all personality types have some drawbacks, which makes us human. It is important that we recognize the strengths and limitations of each personality in our professional environment and work with each person to bring forth the unique value that they have to offer medicine generally and radiology specifically. The same principles apply to our professional organization, and it is important that we take care to see our ACR colleagues as human beings with needs and wants, quirks, and foibles. Doing so will pay dividends in cultivating professional satisfaction, a strong antidote to physician burnout. Most radiology departments live within an organizational structure that is increasingly complex. Even small private practices must relate to the increasingly complex structures of the hospitals and health systems that they serve. These institutions often have a matrixed organizational structure with multiple dimensions, requiring practice leaders to lead by influence horizontally within the organization. Relying on positional power will not work, and practice leaders must seek collaborative leadership models and solutions, or face increasing marginalization. Leading by influence within a larger organization requires leaders to communicate directly with critical stakeholders. It is important to consult stakeholders before planting your flag and to incorporate their feedback as much as possible. Pain points must be anticipated and contingency plans must be drafted. As much as possible, leaders of excellent organizations must enable naysayers to be part of the solution or at least part of the process that will help determine the course ahead. Effective leaders must be respectful of their other positions of authority and be willing to compromise. Leadership in the college helps radiologists develop the skills to lead by influence rather than by positional power or authority. Whether it be as a counselor or alternate counselor, or as a board or committee member, we volunteer our time willingly and with little of the hierarchy typically encountered in our day jobs. Here, work for the college helps us build the leadership by influence skills necessary to develop excellence in highly matrixed healthcare organizations. It's important to focus as much attention on managing up in an organization as managing down. Showing the same respect to your assistant as you would show your peers or superiors will pay dividends in the respect that you may command in an organization. We must listen to the least important person in the room and respect all role groups. Simply stated, it is important for leaders of excellent organizations to elevate the level of respect in their environment. This includes addressing others as you would like to be addressed and drawing out the contributions from more difficult colleagues. It's critically important that we be honest, fair, trustworthy, and transparent in our dealings with our constituents. As practice or department leaders, we lead vertically by the authority given to us by our fellow practice members, and it is too easy to let the power go to our heads. Here, it is critical that we apply these principles on a micro level with our constituents each and every day we come to work. Being a leader within an organization as deep as the American College of Radiology requires that we apply these same leadership principles, but often at a macro level owing to the scale of the organization and our more limited interactions as volunteers. Volunteer leadership positions can lead to very rewarding experiences, but we must not let them go to our heads either. When faced with challenging situations that may undermine the excellence of our profession or the college, we must be sufficiently humble to admit our limitations and seek help as needed. Excellent radiology practices and professional societies alike must continually respond to the new threats and opportunities. These require continual change, and change is hard. As leaders, we must welcome feedback and show vulnerability. By being vulnerable, we communicate to our constituents that it's okay to take risks and make mistakes. Moreover, by showing vulnerability, we acknowledge that wisdom comes from life experiences, and none of us have had sufficient life experiences to know what to do in every circumstance. We must also be respectful of our collective strengths and weaknesses, anticipating where help is needed and delivering it. But when we are the ones who are struggling, we need to demonstrate our resilience by asking for help and specifying to our colleagues what we need to succeed. Many organizations inspire our loyalty and commitment, but I have been intrigued recently by the moral hazard of being uniquely committed to an organization that purports to elevate our consciousness for a greater good. In these circumstances, there is some risk of groupthink leading us to sacrifice our moral compass for the opportunities of the organization. Here, it is critical that ACR members avail themselves of diverse opinions from all role groups in our profession, including those members of other professional organizations. Clearly, part of the ACR strategic plan is to focus on external relationships, and this is by no accident. ACR leadership realized some time ago that it cannot operate in a vacuum. Only by connecting with radiologists with diverse viewpoints, including those from professional organizations other than our own, are we able to represent the House of Radiology most effectively. Excellent organizations cultivate high-functioning teams. In 1978, United Airlines Flight 173 crashed because of a fatal breakdown in communication among its crew members. When the plane developed a problem with its landing gear, the pilot put the plane in a holding pattern so the situation could be investigated fully. While more junior crew members cautiously pointed out that fuel was running low, the captain did not listen to their warnings, and the plane crashed when the fuel tanks ran dry. This led the National Transportation Safety Board to recommend a new set of training procedures for when human error may lead to devastating consequences. Crew resource management emerged with the goal of providing processes at all levels to identify, reduce, and prevent errors before they lead to adverse events. Training teams to function at a high level of communication and cooperation emerged from crew resource management, and the extension to the healthcare industry was inevitable. Interactive classroom education, crisis simulation sessions, and participatory group briefings are the hallmarks of effective team training. They are as applicable in healthcare as they are in the airline industry. Initially intended to reduce errors in interventional procedures, I've had the privilege of seeing team training enable practitioners at all levels to speak up if they perceive things are not going well. This is done by embracing a just culture that ensures the psychological safety of a satisfied workforce. Those who know me well know that I'm confident my tombstone will have one of two epitaphs. My kids believe my epitaph will be, "Here lies Jim, he did email." But I'm pretty sure it will say, "Here lies Jim, he failed to achieve a just culture." Achieving a just culture in healthcare is exceptionally difficult. When a non-professional staff member makes an error, typical human resource policies call for escalating verbal and written warnings that can ultimately lead to dismissal. But when a professional staff member makes an error, we often attribute it to other factors, including simply the art of medicine. Effective team training works hard to break down the barriers to communication that come from fear of reprisal. Moreover, high-functioning teams embrace the power of systems that enable us to learn from our mistakes. Such systems need to be transparent, reliable, and ongoing, with measures that clearly document improvement. The emotional intelligence of our leaders enables them to leverage their understanding of human emotions to inform and guide their decision-making. But more importantly, emotionally intelligent leaders also have the empathy and respect for their team members to create an environment where it is psychologically safe to voice concerns. Because the stakes are high, these principles are front and center in the healthcare industry. But they may not be as familiar in the business world, where mistakes that come from an unjust culture typically do not have life or death consequences. In recent months, I have been proud to see ACR staff members embrace just culture principles learned from their counterparts in radiology. These blame avoidance principles are critical to understanding the root cause of various problems that arise from time to time in any profession or healthcare organization. Practitioners who feel safe psychologically know that if they make a mistake, they will not be penalized or viewed poorly. They know that if they ask for help or propose a new idea, they will not be resented or penalized for their actions. Here, emotionally intelligent leaders must also demonstrate and embrace their own vulnerability by showing that it's okay to make a mistake or ask for help. In his book, The Culture Code, Daniel Coyle highlights vulnerability as one of the most important ingredients of successful leadership. Leaders who admit when they don't know the answer or the path forward encourage their constituents to do the same, enabling teams to function most effectively. One example he likes to cite involves the Marshmallow Challenge. Teams are given limited quantities of uncooked spaghetti, tape, and string, and the team that builds the highest tower that will support a single marshmallow in a limited amount of time wins. Kindergartners, without the hierarchy of professional relationships, often beat the cockiest group of MBAs who spend most of their time trying to establish and navigate a group leadership structure. The kindergartners succeed by selfless trial and error without any one person taking command or being afraid to admit his or her uncertainties about the best solution. In her book, Daring Greatly, Brené Brown also highlights the importance of vulnerability in our personal and professional lives. Embracing our vulnerability allows us to show up to challenging situations with our whole heart and to be fully engaged in the problems at hand and their potential solutions. She gives many examples, but some of the most memorable ones involve family dynamics. One of the best ways to address our children's fear of failure is to tell them about our own fears that we have experienced in similar circumstances. Showing that it's okay to be vulnerable can help our constituents face the hurdles and develop their own creative solutions. Ms. Brown cites Teddy Roosevelt's Man in the Arena speech as the motivation for this viewpoint, and I assure you there's no collusion with Dr. McGinty with the same quote in her speech. However, President Roosevelt delivered this speech on April 23, 1910 at the Sorbonne in Paris, France. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. While I doubt that President Roosevelt would have identified vulnerability as the most important attribute of those that dare greatly, Brené Brown makes a strong case that only those who embrace their vulnerability can bring their whole self to the arena without fear of shame from making a mistake. Sounds simple, right? Unfortunately, despite our best intentions, the fear of reprisal and retaliation keep many from voicing their concerns, even when patient safety is at stake. While institutions commonly adopt a zero-tolerance policy for retaliation, most juniors know that it's exceptionally difficult to prove subtle acts of retaliation that can undermine one's career. These can take the form of many microaggressions that inflict their death by 1,000 cuts. In this regard, I find a curious intersection with another leadership responsibility that I have faced as co-chair of our hospital's diversity efforts. In the absence of a chief diversity officer, our committee has held de facto responsibility for diversity, equity, and inclusion in our hospital for the past several years. Like most diversity efforts in healthcare, and under the skillful direction of Dr. Kasha Makura, the ACR's Commission for Women in Diversity has focused its attention primarily on equity among the various demographics within our profession. Most hospital diversity efforts also focus on equity, but I have been struck in recent months how much effort is needed to address hate. Exclusion is the opposite of inclusion, and hate is a powerful driver of exclusion. Hate takes many forms in our hospitals, but I have been saddened to see rising micro and macro aggressions that relate to race and ethnicity, typically among the public we serve. While most macro aggressions are addressed initially by our hospital's police and security personnel, Our diversity committee has been grappling with this rising force that threatens the inclusiveness that is most important to effective healthcare. And with rising civil discord, micro and macroaggressions can be practiced, emulated, and applied in circumstances that undermine our efforts to encourage practitioners at all levels to speak up for safety. Solutions to these problems are evasive, but lessons learned through diversity efforts to address hate may be applicable to enabling a just culture in quality and safety. The ACR remains committed to excellence as an organization in all its programs, services, and functions. Lessons learned in our college are often directly translatable to our radiology practices and departments, and best practices developed in our day jobs are potentially valuable to the college. Tools that can help organizations develop into high-functioning teams require leaders who bring themselves wholeheartedly to the arena and dare greatly to make a difference. I'd like to close by expressing my profound gratitude to my wife, Holly, and my children, Joey, Ellie, Laura, and Megan, most of whom are here today, for their patience with the countless hours I've spent on professional activities away from my family. Thank you very much for the opportunity to serve as your college president and to share my thoughts with you today.